morning, Acadiana. It is Wednesday, March 17th, 2021, and you're listening to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS Radio. You can find print versions of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We can bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today, we're joined by Daniel Rayburn. Welcome to Local News Live, Daniel.
And thank you for having me.
All right, well, I'm going to go listen to the stories on Cypress Street.
Good morning, Acadiana. It is my pleasure to be here with you once again. We, as always, have quite a few headlines to get to this morning. We're just going to dive right in with news from around the Acadiana area. And we begin with this. Lafayette to get massive stimulus haul. Money comes with few strings attached. And this is written by Ben Myers. Lafayette city and parish governments are about to get massive windfalls of federal stimulus money, and the possibilities for what to do with it are almost limitless. Just how massive are the American Rescue Plan Act allocations? Lafayette Parish will receive $47.4 million slice, is almost 4 times its general fund budget for this year. It's almost double the combined estimate amount for all public works construction projects scheduled for bidding through the end of the year. The city of Lafayette is getting a bit less, even though it's much larger government entity in terms of operating budget. Yet, its $36.1 million share is more than enough to knock out 1 year of planned capital projects based on the annual average of its 5-year capital improvement plan. The state's portion will more than double its general fund balance. Mayor President Josh Guillory's administration, which will oversee both the city and parish stimulus pots, says it will hammer out plans with the 2 councils during upcoming budget discussions. Quote, "It is way too early to say in detail how the fund will be allocated. We first have to look at the law and whatever guidelines are issued to get a good understanding of exactly how we can spend it," city parish spokesman Jamie Angel said in an email. The money comes from a $350 billion portion of the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill that will go directly to state and local governments. The money is generally intended to make up for lost revenue and other financial hits stemming from the COVID-19 crisis. But the restrictions are broadly worded, and practically speaking, almost all local government expenses, aside from pension payments, which are forbidden, will qualify, said Christy Malloyd, a University of Louisiana at Lafayette political science professor. Quote, "Even if there are restrictions, it's not clear who would be policing that. Someone would need to have standing and to sue to say we think this money has been misappropriated, and that's just extremely unlikely to happen," Malloyd said. In addition to looser constraints, this round of stimulus will go directly to the city parish, unlike assistance for local governments passed through last year's CARES Act. The previous local funding was mostly filtered through state governments, which set parameters and decided how much local jurisdictions would get. Quote, "From a local politics perspective, it's going to be very interesting to see the innovation that can happen when local governments have money to use outside of the constraints of state strings attached," Malloyd said. Meanwhile, early data suggests the pandemic's toll on Lafayette's finances may not be as bad as feared. Year-over-year sales tax collection in both the city and parish increased in the first 4 months of the 2021 fiscal year, which began in November, meaning local sales are now outperforming those in months just before the pandemic. Still, Lafayette Parish stands to lose an estimated $36.1 million over 6 years in sales and property taxes, along with other lost revenues resulting from COVID-19 and Hurricane Laura, according to the Louisiana Legislative Auditor. Parish Councilman Joshua Carlson said he hopes to see the parish's stimulus cut spread among backlogged infrastructure projects and the reserves of dedicated property tax funds, such as those for the library and juvenile detention. Quote, "No matter what we do, I just want to make sure we spend money on one-time projects, or it's not a reoccurring expense for operations or staff," Carlson said. Yet, there is no way to shore up the parish's general fund, which is separate from the dedicated property tax funds for specific purposes, without also spending on reoccurring expenses. That is because parish property taxes do not bring enough to cover mandated expenses, especially for the jail and the courthouse. The Lafayette Parish Correctional Center receives funding from its own property tax, but the tax always falls short of covering the needs of a jail that is nearly 40 years old. To make up the difference, the parish subsidizes the jail with the Courthouse Complex Fund, depriving the also decrepit courthouse. Nearly half the jail's $9 million budget in 2021 came from the courthouse subsidy. Shortages at the courthouse are band-aided from the parish's general fund, which squeezes other parish services and leaves virtually no fund balance year after year. Quote, until they address that, and address it properly, they are going to keep kicking that can down the road, said the parish assessor, Conrad Como. But it is not clear how a one-time infusion can fix the structural flaws in parish finances, which, in addition to inadequate millages, derive from municipal annexations eating into an ever-shrinking tax base. A new jail would probably ease the habitual over-reliance on courthouse funding, at least somewhat, but that would still leave parish reserves near zero, Como said. Quote, you could blow $47 million real quick on a new jail, and then you would be out of money, Como said. Carlson said contractors have informally told him that a new jail in a parish like Lafayette would probably cost more than $50 million. Using stimulus money for infrastructure upgrades could potentially free up money for other projects in the future, he says. As for the reserves, Carlson said he wants to ensure they do not quickly drop again if stimulus money is used to build them up. Quote, we are spending millions of dollars a year more than we are bringing in, plain and simple. That's what I don't want to do. I don't want to do it in an area that in 3 years we are going to be back where we started today, Carlson said. And now, we move on to our next headline, which comes to us from the city of Lafayette. And it reads, Panel to study merger impact on city. Group given 6 months to review consolidation. And this is written by Claire Taylor. A committee appointed to look at whether being part of Lafayette Consolidated Government is beneficial to the city of Lafayette met for the first time Tuesday, with some saying the proposed 3-month timeline to present its findings to the city is ambitious. A city council resolution establishing the Protect the City Committee allows the group 6 months to produce a report answering 14 questions about consolidation. A timeline and meeting schedule presented Tuesday has the committee presenting its report to the council June 22nd. City Councilman Pat Lewis, who called for creation of the Protect the City Committee, said it takes 6 to 8 months, and that's okay. Quote, I want to make sure it's done right, he said. I don't want to rush it like was done before. Voters in December 2018 approved a home rule charter amendment that some believe was rushed to the ballot by city parish council members and fixed the charter supporters without using a charter committee to study the issues as had been done in the past. The council pushed for the charter changes before the October 2019 City Parish Council elections. Approval of the charter amendment abolished the City Parish Council and created separate city and parish councils for the first time since consolidation took effect in 1996. One thing that did not change is the election of a mayor-president to administer policies of the City of Lafayette and the Lafayette Parish government, a position voted on by everyone in the parish, including the City of Lafayette, unincorporated areas of the parish, and 5 other municipalities that elect their own mayors and councils. Over the past year, Lewis said he has seen where the 2018 charter amendment did not provide the city of Lafayette the autonomy expected with the creation of separate city and parish councils. The 14 questions the Protect the City Committee is expected to address include: how can the City Council best protect City of Lafayette tax dollars? How can the City Council best protect the ratepayer-owned Lafayette utilities system? How can the City Council best protect the interest of City of Lafayette citizens? Has consolidation lived up to the promises made in 1992 when it was voted on? How has the City of Lafayette's share of the cost of government services changed over time relative to the parish? How does the per capita share of consolidated services paid by the City of Lafayette residents differ from a resident of an unincorporated area or a resident of another municipality in our parish? Does the current system of cost allocation adequately communicate to the average citizen how the cost of consolidation are shared? Are city tax dollars being spent outside the City of Lafayette? Are city tax dollars being spent to benefit something other than the City of Lafayette? Is consolidation fair to City of Lafayette residents? Would deconsolidation benefit City of Lafayette residents, taxpayers, and businesses? What are potential annual savings to the City of Lafayette after deconsolidation? And finally, would the City of Lafayette be better served by having its own mayor? Lewis said Tuesday he would like something on the ballot before voters in the fall of 2022, whether it's one or more charter amendments or deconsolidation. Thus far, only the City Council is involved in the process. The Parish Council would have to agree to place a charter amendment on the ballot before voters. That may be preceded by appointment of a charter commission to determine what would be on the ballot. The next Protect the City Committee meeting is set for March 30th. Jan Swift was selected chairperson. Joseph Tag Catalan was chosen vice chairman. And with that, we will now take a short break from the news for this PSA. Reach a larger audience. Speak to your local community. Express your uncensored opinion on our hashtag free speech platform. A few of the many reasons to join AOC. Amplify your voice on our channels. Go to aocinc.org/submit. Need access to tools and equipment? Go to aocinc.org/join. You can also tag us when you share your programs on social media, and we'll help amplify your message by sharing on our platforms. That can be found at AOC Community Media on Facebook, at AOC in LFT on Twitter, and at AOC Community Media on Instagram. Find it all at aocinc.org. Back to the headlines. With this, she will be missed. Evangeline, beloved Louisiana giraffe, dies. And this is written by Megan Wyatt. Evangeline, a senior female giraffe at Louisiana, has died. She was 17. Staff at the Broussard Zoo announced Evangeline's death in a Tuesday Facebook post. The giraffe died early Monday morning, Louisiana owner George Oldenburg said in a phone interview. The zoo was closed Monday as a result and reopened Tuesday. Quote, "This is hard for us over here," Oldenburg said. "She had the best care by all means." Evangeline, who celebrated her 17th birthday in January, was euthanized Monday after suffering for months from chronic leg pain that is common in older, larger hoofstock species. The giraffe initially responded well to treatments for leg lameness in October, Oldenburg said, but she relapsed earlier this month and did not improve with medical intervention. Quote, "It was just difficult to see her this way," Oldenburg said. The vet, both the LSU vet we called in and our own at the zoo, said she wouldn't recover from this. They said this was the humane thing to do. She would sit down and was unable to get back up without going back down again. Giraffes can live up to 26 years in the wild and slightly longer in captivity, although the average lifespan is typically shorter. The median life expectancy for female giraffes in captivity is 20.2 years, according to the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Evangeline arrived at Louisiana, then known as the Zoo of Acadiana, in 2012. The zoo celebrated her long-awaited arrival as a female companion for a beloved giraffe named Gabriel. Quote, "She wasn't as friendly and huggable as Gabriel. He's one of a kind," Oldenburg said. Evangeline was a little more standoffish, but sweet and never aggressive in any fashion. Gabriel, who came to the zoo at just 6 months old, has spent most of his life interacting with people. Oldenburg actually spent the night in the barn with the baby giraffe when he arrived at Louisiana. Evangeline arrived as an adult and had spent far less time around humans. She eventually warmed up to Gabriel and the zookeepers. Quote, "We were so excited to get her," said Lee Lofton, who worked for 20 years as the zoo's marketing director, in a phone interview. "It took so long to bring Evangeline and Gabriel together. She will be missed." In 2013, the community came together to celebrate Gabriel and Evangeline's wedding. The event was officiated by a justice of the peace, and children served as members of the wedding party for the two giraffes. Quote, "We had made such a big deal about getting Evangeline," Lofton said. "It just made sense for them to get married and make more of a family-oriented thing before they had babies." Evangeline and Gabriel, named for characters in Henry Wadsworth's 1847 poem, Evangeline, A Tale of Acadie, had their first calf, Josie, in 2016. They had a second calf, Millie, last September. Millie had recently weaned from her mother in favor of grain and alfalfa. "It's like Evangeline had held on until the little calf was weaned," Oldenburg said. "She was a really good mom. She was a good soul." Evangeline's death is just one of a few devastations to strike Louisiana in the last year. Pandemic restrictions closed the private zoo last March and later canceled or significantly altered revenue-generating events such as Jungle Camp, Boo at the Zoo, the Safari of Lights, and the upcoming Easter Egg Extravaganza. Hurricane Delta took out dozens of trees at the zoo in October and damaged boardwalks and other infrastructure. As temperatures plunged below freezing during the last month's winter storm, staff had to provide heaters and insulated bedding for the zoo's animals and carry buckets of water to each enclosure for days. Quote, "I can't complain," Oldenburg said. "People have had it worse. I think a lot about these businesses that have had to shut down and they're just gone. Of course, what was difficult with us over here is that you can't just turn the lights out and go back in a few months. The exhibits still have to be cleaned during the pandemic. The animals still have to be fed. My expenses for maintaining this operation never went down." Oldenburg said grief counseling is available to his team if needed, as they mourn the loss of Evangeline. The zoo's 3 remaining giraffes have been a bit anxious since Monday morning. Gabriel, who turned 16 this year, has been coping well, Oldenburg said, but Josie and Millie have been walking in and out of the barn in their enclosure in search of their mother. Oldenburg said he's planning to plant a tree at the zoo in memory of Evangeline. Quote, "We have to accept that these animals don't live forever, and when it's their time, Oldenburg said. We feel like she had a good, happy life, and she was very well cared for and had the best treatment." And now, we will move on to our next headline. And it reads, Karen Crow Library project on hold. Money woes stalled $4 million expansion. This is written by Claire Taylor. The Lafayette Parish Library Board on Monday put a hold on a $4 million expansion of the Northern Regional Library in Karen Crow. After a presentation by architect Glenn Angel of a schematic design for the proposed addition, the board voted unanimously to hold off on advancing with the project's next phase, development design, with some board members expressing concern about the financial condition of the library system. The library system started 2018 with $40 million in savings. A series of events, from rejection of a property tax renewal to stripping $8 million from the savings to spend on drainage, and a failure to roll millages forward when property values dropped, caused that savings to dwindle to $7 million. Money was set aside for expanding the North Regional Library, but board president Doug Palumbo said Monday it may be needed to operate the libraries, especially if a $2 million property tax that expires in 2022 is not renewed by voters. The parish council is expected to vote in April to place the property tax renewal before voters on a fall ballot. In April 2018, voters failed to renew one of the library's 3 property taxes, costing the library system more than $3 million a year. The library board is expected to discuss at its April meeting how to obtain data on the geographic locale of patrons who use the library. Also on the table is construction of a new library in Northeast Lafayette. Money was set aside by the previous Lafayette City Parish Council for that project. Lafayette board members want to know which library residents of Northeast Lafayette currently use the main library downtown or the Karen Crow Library to help them weigh which project should proceed, the Karen Crow expansion or construction of the new Northeast Library. Next headline, which reads, Karen Crow Council takes no action on obscenity ordinance. Crave owner seeks amendment, variance for store. This is by Adam Daigle. City officials in Karen Crow took no action on their obscenity ordinance in regard to opening of Crave Romance Boutique during their Monday City Council meeting. Council members heard from co-owner Mike Menard, shopping center owners Miles Holly, and concerned residents during a discussion of the store's request to sell items that city officials say would be in violation of their obscenity ordinance. The matter would have needed a motion to amend the ordinance that prohibits the, quote, distribution of adult videos, literature, and sexual toys. Mayor Glenn Brasso said. No council member offered a resolution to do so. Holly told council members that he reached out to the 2 current tenants in the shopping center after Menard contacted him about the space in December and received no opposition. He also called the city and had no indication any hurdles existed for the business. He spent about $60,000 to prepare the space, he said. Quote, it's my understanding that it went to the highest level that there was no prohibition on this type of business, Holly said. So we went forward with the build-out. Mr. Menard is scheduled to open April 1st, and we look forward to that. Menard asked council members to consider amending the ordinance or issue a variance to allow his store to exist. He cited a similar situation in Tagahoa Parish, in which the local governing body granted the business a variance and is rewriting its obscenity ordinance. Menard said that he spent about $22,000 so far preparing for the store to open. Quote, if you won't consider giving me a variance, I want to be a good neighbor and want to operate within the bounds of what you want me to do, Menard said. I really want to work within your bounds. If you can tell me where the line is, I don't have to cross it. I never would have done this if I thought this was going to happen. The store is an upscale adult store specializing in the erotic needs of women and couples. It will soon move into a new location at 3301 Johnson Street in Lafayette, which has a less strict obscenity ordinance. And with that, we will now take another break from the headlines, this time to bring you the Today in History, famous birthdays, and your daily horoscope. We will start with Today in History, which is brought to us by the Associated Press. Today is Wednesday, March 17th, the 76th day of 2021. There are 289 days left in the year. Today is also St. Patrick's Day. Today's highlight in history. On March 17th, 1762, New York held its first St. Patrick's Day parade. Also on this date, in 1776, the Revolutionary War siege of Boston ended as British forces evacuated the city. In 1936, Pittsburgh's Great St. Patrick's Day flood began as the Monongahela and Allegheny rivers and their tributaries, swollen by rain and melted snow, started exceeding flood stage. The high water was blamed for more than 60 deaths. In 1959, the Dalai Lama fled Tibet for India in the wake of a failed uprising by Tibetans against Chinese rule. In 1966, a U.S. Navy midget submarine located a missing hydrogen bomb that had fallen from a U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber in the Mediterranean off Spain. It took several more weeks to actually recover the bomb. In 1992, in Illinois, Senator Alan Dixon was defeated in his primary re-election bid by Carol Moseley Braun, who went on to become the first black woman in the U.S. Senate. In 2003, edging to the brink of war, President George W. Bush gave Saddam Hussein 48 hours to leave his country. Iraq rejected Bush's ultimatum, saying that a U.S. attack to force Saddam from power would be, quote, a grave mistake. In 2009, U.S. journalists Lauren Ling and Yuna Lee were detained by North Korea while reporting on North Korean refugees leaving across the border in China. Both were convicted of entering North Korea illegally and were sentenced to 12 years of hard labor. Both were freed in August of 2009 after former President Bill Clinton met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. In 2010, Michael Jordan became the first ex-player to become a majority owner in the NBA as the league's Board of Governors unanimously approved Jordan's $275 million bid to buy the Charlotte Bobcats from Bob Johnson. 10 years ago today, the UN Security Council paved the way for international airstrikes against Muammar Gaddafi's forces, voting to authorize military action to protect civilians and imposed a no-fly zone over Libya. 5 years ago today, finally bowing to years of public pressure, SeaWorld Entertainment said it would no longer breed killer whales or make them perform crowd-pleasing tricks. And 1 year ago today, a 3-week shelter-in-place order took effect in 6 San Francisco area counties, requiring most residents to stay inside and venture out only for food, medicine, or exercise. State TV in Iran warned that millions could die if Iranians kept traveling and ignoring health guidance. The coronavirus death toll in Iran neared 1,000. And now for today's famous birthdays. The former national chairwoman of the NAACP, Marley Evers Williams, is 88 today. Former astronaut Ken Mattingly is 85. Singer-songwriter John Sebastian of the Lovin' Spoonful has turned 77. Rock musician Harold Brown of War is 75. Actor Patrick Duffy has turned 72 today. Actor Kurt Russell has turned 70. Country singer Susie Allenson is 69 today. Actor Leslie Ann Down is 67. Actor Mark Boone Jr. has turned 66. Country singer Paul Overstreet is also 66. Actor Gary Sinise is also 66. Actor Christian Clemenson has turned 63. Former basketball and baseball player Danny Eugene is 62. Actor Vicki Lewis has turned 61. Writer-director Rob Seach is 59 today. Actor Rob Lowe has turned 57. Rock singer Billy Corgan is 54. Rock musician Van Conner of Screaming Trees is also 54. Actor Matthew St. Patrick has turned 53 today. Olympic gold medal soccer player Mia Hamm is 49. Rock musician Caroline Corr of the Corrs is 48. And finally, country singer Kiefer Thompson of Thompson Square is 48 today. And now we move to the daily horoscope. We begin with Pisces, which is birth dates of February 20th to March 20th. Listen to reason when dealing with institutions or bureaucracy. Take the necessary steps to ensure you don't have to redo something. A lack of patience or accuracy will result in disappointment or discord. For Aries, which is birth dates of March 21st to April 19th, connect with like-minded people and you will develop a groundbreaking plan. Pace yourself and do things right the first time. Everything else will fall into place. For Taurus, which is April 20th to May 20th birth dates, make up your mind. If you are indecisive, someone will jump in and take control. Don't overdo it or take on any responsibilities that don't belong to you. For Gemini, which is May 21st to June 20th birth dates, take the initiative instead of leaving work for someone else. Put your mark on whatever you do, and you will get the credit you deserve. You'll get more done if you work alone. For Cancer, which is birth dates of June 21st to July 22nd, it's up to you to change things up a bit. Use your imagination to come up with a plan that will lead to more significant opportunities. A partnership could be beneficial. For Leo, which is birth dates of July 23rd to August 22nd, slow down and take a moment to rethink what you want to do next. Refuse to let anyone railroad you into a joint venture or financial investment. Be responsible, moderate, and thoughtful. For Virgo, which is August 23rd to September 22nd birth dates, find a way to use your skills in a trendy manner. A positive attitude will help you attract friends, relatives, or peers to help you. Romance is favored. For Libra, which is September 23rd to October 23rd birth dates, put more effort into being the best you can be. Refuse to get dragged into someone's dilemma and don't poke your nose where it doesn't belong. Make today about your accomplishments and happiness. For Scorpio, which is October 24th to November 22nd birthdays, leave nothing to chance. Go over every detail. Reach out to someone you want by your side. Take the initiative and don't linger over inconsequential matters. For Sagittarius, which is November 23rd to December 21st birth dates, step back. If you act in haste, you will make a mistake. Domestic problems or indulgent behavior should be dealt with before you can bring about the changes you want to pursue. For Capricorn, which is birth dates of December 22nd to January 19th, look at what you want to accomplish and don't dwell on the impossible. You'll find a way to make changes at home that will enhance your professional and personal life. Romance is encouraged. And finally, for Aquarius, which is birth dates of January 20th to February 19th, emotional spending will lead to regret. Work with what you have instead of making lavish purchases. An argument over the way you handle money will strain an important relationship. And with that, we will now focus back in on our headlines, moving away from the Acadiana area to stories from the state of Louisiana at large. And our first state headline is an update on the coronavirus. And it reads, Louisiana part of Moderna vaccine trials for kids. Firm to conduct testing on children under 12. This is written by Emily Woodruff. Children under 12, including babies as young as 6 months old, will be able to participate in clinical trials in Louisiana for Moderna's 2-dose coronavirus vaccine, the drug company announced Tuesday. MedPharmix, a clinical research center based in Metairie with 8 sites across the United States, is participating in Moderna's trial for children. The 12 and older group has already been filled, according to owner Dr. Robert Ginfro, with about 70 local teens participating in the company's 3,000-person trial nationwide. MedPharmix will begin enrolling kids ages 6 months and up to 12 years as soon as they receive the supplies, possibly within a few days, said Ginfro. If it's anything like demand for the older kids, slots will go quickly. Quote, some studies are a hard sell, said Ginfro. This one has not been. People flooded to us. Ginfro said they will enroll as many children between the ages of 6 months and 11 years as possible, likely up to 100. Pfizer and Moderna both have completed enrollment for studies of children ages 12 and older and expect to release that data over the summer. If regulators clear the results, younger teens could start getting vaccinated once supply allows. The Moderna vaccine is currently cleared for people 18 and older. Johnson & Johnson has plans to test its 1-dose vaccine in children, but trials have not begun yet. The Pfizer vaccine is already cleared for use in children 16 and up. In Louisiana, that means 16 and 17-year-olds can get the vaccine if they have one of nearly a dozen of the state's qualifying conditions, including a body mass index over 25. Like adults, each child in the Moderna study will receive 2 shots 28 days apart. But the size of the dose children receive will vary at first. Scientists will analyze the initial results for safety and effectiveness at different dose sizings and age ranges. In the second half of the study, participants will get the dosage determined to be the most effective for their age group, or they will get a placebo shot. Quote, you're not going to give a 6-month-old the same dose you would give to a 65-year-old, generally speaking, said Ginfro. But it's not as simple as that. Very young children have an immune system that is not as robust as an adult. In some situations, the vaccine has to be more potent. Vaccinating children is likely necessary to reach overall herd immunity, according to Tulane University epidemiologist Susan Haseeg. In Louisiana, children make up about 1/4 of the population. Somewhere between 75% to 90% of the population needs immunity to stop the virus from easily jumping from host to host, Haseeg estimated. Children have a much lower risk of severe symptoms from COVID-19 infection, though some do develop a life-threatening illness. Inoculating children can help protect others. Quote, it's good for kids if they don't get sick, but they're a potential source of infection for grandparents, said Ginfro. It's worthwhile to get them vaccinated as well. Ginfro has also seen altruism play a part. He overheard a father asking his teenage daughter why she wanted to be in the study at the clinic the other week. Quote, she said the most amazing thing, said Ginfro. She said, I want to help other people. MedPharmix has participated in many other vaccine trials over the pandemic and other trials for children. Parents interested in enrolling children between the ages of 6 months and 11 years can call 504-304-7197 to join the waitlist. Children in the study will be followed for 14 months as investigators measure the antibody response. There will be 6 site visits, about 90 minutes each, with blood drawn at 4 of the visits. Parents will be compensated for their time and travel. The Associated Press contributed to this report. And now, our next headline, which reads, None Guesser, Tourism Needs State to Relax Restrictions. And this is written by Ken Stickney. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser says Louisiana, which suffered through a pandemic-influenced downturn in tourism commerce, jobs, and tax collected in 2020, needs to, quote, up its game quickly to lure visitors and their dollars back to the state. Nungesser, speaking to the Acadiana Republican women on Tuesday in Lafayette, said he'd be meeting with Governor John Bell Edwards on Thursday and would advise him to further open up the state for tourism business, especially with outdoor events. Quote, in the next few weeks, I hope we can open it up, he said, noting that some 63.9% of Americans are thinking about traveling and 54.6% are planning a leisure trip within 3 months. 13% of Americans with spring break plans are choosing new destinations, he said, adding he wants those visitors here because Louisiana's tourism industry needs the business. He said the Office of Tourism under his direction has been meeting with tourism officials around Louisiana, who have been asking the state government for guidance about how to plan festivals, fairs, and other tourism events, perhaps later this year. That matters because such public events must be planned well in advance, not on a whim. Quote, we're compensating against wide-open states, Nungesser said, of other destination sites on the Gulf Coast, like Texas and Florida. If Louisiana gives the impression it's not ready to welcome visitors, it will lose tourism dollars. Nungesser said he's pressing for more in-state and nearby neighborhood tourism through staycations, Louisianians choosing destinations in other parts of the state for short vacations and driving trips. Among those staycation options, the Office of Tourism is promoting overnight visits to Louisiana's state parks, many of which have had substantial upgrades. Those improvements include 12 new miles of bike trails at Bouge Cheeto State Park, contactless check-in at all parks, newly stocked fishing ponds, and new RV pads at Fontainebleau and Grand Isle and roads poured at Grand Isle. The state is also putting a new branch in place at Sycamore Point State Park, and a new conference center will be opened at Black Bear Golf Course at Poverty Point State Park. Some 90% of visitors to state parks are Louisiana residents. Nungesser said he's especially encouraged that so many Louisianians have gotten one or both vaccine shots and that numbers of COVID-19 cases have slowed considerably. That, he said, should promote the state as a healthy destination. He said his office is pressing for new advantages in luring visitors, including offering new out-of-state group hosting conventions, conferences, and meetings, one night of free Louisiana seafood cooked by a Louisiana chef, and a free musician or band. He said he was promoting Louisiana as a conference site to one potential out-of-state client when the client said he was stunned that the lieutenant governor himself would make the pitch. Quote, would you talk to my wife, the client asked. Nungesser told him he'd talk to his children, too, if he'd come to Louisiana. And I did. Much of that drives Louisiana tourism in personal contact, he said. Nungesser said international visitor travel to Louisiana has slowed. People aren't fully ready to fly. but he said he's expecting a pent-up travel market to pack Louisiana as soon as long-distance travel is deemed safe. His office has remained in touch with Canadian travel professionals, Louisiana's top market for international visitors, as well as France and Germany, both typically robust source of guests. Nungesser himself battled the coronavirus earlier this year after going to dinner with a party of 6. He said he's fully on board with taking COVID-19 precautions, masking, social distancing, washing hands frequently, as well as respecting those who feel more comfortable with masking. But he said he's in favor of loosening restrictions on outdoor events so that people planning large festivals can make plans for later this year. He said he told travel agents in Canada on a Zoom call that, quote, "The gumbo's hot, the beer's cold, and they should plan on visiting this year." He also said he's urging Louisiana residents to help the tourism cause by inviting out-of-state family and friends to travel here for holidays, especially to family-friendly events like the Christmas light tours. And now, we will move to our final headline of the morning, which comes to us from the world of sports, and it reads, Season of Change. Napier heads into first day of spring practice with laundry list of issues to be addressed. And this is written by Kevin Foote. In some ways, the fourth spring football season under UL coach Billy Napier is filled with routine with his system firmly in place. In other ways, however, there are areas of the team filled with unknowns the Raging Cajuns head man plans to address between Tuesday's first day of spring practice and the annual spring game scheduled for 7 p.m. on April 22nd at Cajun Field. Quote, "This is the time of the season that it starts to become a reality. Your job as a staff is to take this group of people and see how far we can go," Napier said on Tuesday. Each individual coach kind of embracing that challenge of getting the most out of your room. One of the biggest changes is a long list of new coaches, especially in key spots on the defensive side. UL finally made it official Tuesday morning on the newcomers. On defense, the new coaches are former Louisiana Tech assistant Jeff Barris at cornerback, former North Texas assistant Galen Scott at inside linebacker, and former South Florida assistant Wes Neighbors at safety. Also, defensive coordinator Patrick Toney returns, but he'll be coaching a new position at outside linebacker. Quote, "I think much like I just described to the players, there is a little bit of an orientation to the new guy, right?" Napier said. "Getting comfortable with how we operate in all areas, evaluating, recruiting, meetings, walkthroughs, practice, how we run the off-season program." On the offensive side, former Florida Atlantic assistant Jeff Norris takes over as the offensive line coach, and former Sam Houston State assistant Darnell Stapleton takes over as the assistant offensive line coach. There's also a new special teams coordinator and former Tulane assistant coach Chris Couch. Despite him being the third special teams coordinator in the past 3 years, Napier is confident in the consistency in that area. Quote, "No, I think we got all of our specialists back," Napier said. "We've got quite a bit of experience when it comes from a game changer standpoint. A lot of players that have played a lot of snaps. We've got an identity on special teams here. It's very much a team effort. I think we've established a certain standard of how we're going to play. It's a culture that's in place, and it's a very important part of what we do. It's where we start, from a football standpoint, establishing our identity as a football team." Couch will also be aided by graduate assistant Max Arnold and seasoned intern Jordan Frazier. Quote, "Good group, and I think the special team success that Tulane had over the last 4 or 5 years is well documented," Napier said. "Certainly, Chris has contributed to that. We're excited about his leadership in that role." Then, there's all the new players. On one hand, there's more experience than ever returning with the seniors back for an extra year because of COVID-19. On the other, the coronavirus shutdown last March also means that there are 2 groups of underclassmen that have never gone through an entire spring season. Quote, When we combine those two groups with the 11 mid-year players we have, there are a lot of players going out there that have a lot of work to do to develop and get ready to go, Napier said. We have a lot of players that I would consider a liability at this point, and our goal is to make them an asset, develop them into complete players. That's really what we've been focused on at this point. The spring season is also big for transfers. Quote, we're going to teach them our system, our values, our program, our year-round plan for the development as a person, as a student, and as a player, Napier said. It's more about them getting up to speed at how we operate than us becoming familiar with them. Just because they transfer from some big school doesn't mean they're going to get the opportunity to play. They've got to earn everything here, and that's what we're in the process of trying to figure out. Spring football is also the first step in finding the answers for the biggest position group questions entering the 2021 season. Who in the world is going to replace the production of running backs Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis? Chris Smith is the first building block, but there's very little experience behind him. Quote, we've got a lot of confidence in Chris, and really the whole group, Napier said, but they've got to go do it. Right now is the time. It's a big spring for a lot of young players in that position group. Before we close our program this morning, we will look at the funerals today in the Acadiana area. We begin with Henry Hebert Sr., with services at Walter's Funeral Home at 2 p.m. Next is Alan Picard, who has services at Evangeline Memorial Gardens Chapel in Carencro at 1 p.m. And finally, Doug Shores, with service at Martin and Castile's La Fleur de Lis Chapel in Lafayette at 2 p.m. With that, this has been Local News Live for March 17th, 2021. I've been your reader, Daniel Rayburn. Join us at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AOC 1, Cypress Street Radio, or the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com and find out how to volunteer and more at aocinc.org. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you will join us again tomorrow. Have a great day, Acadiana.
reach a larger audience, speak to your local community, express your uncensored opinion on our hashtag free speech platform. A few of the many reasons to join AOC Community Media. Amplify your voice on our channels. Go to aocinc.org/join, or submit, I should say. Need access to tools and equipment? Go to aocinc.org/join. You can also tag us when you share your programs on social media. That's at Community Media on Facebook, at AOCNLFT on Twitter, and at AOC Community Media on Instagram. You can find it all at aocinc.org. Thanks again for listening to Local News Live.